Well, welcome everybody. My name is Gary Hartley. I'm the Dean of Instruction and Technology at Folsom Lake College, which is in Folsom, which we refer to as the home of America's first gated community. You've probably heard of it. Anyway, Folsom Prison really doesn't have much of an impact on what we do, unfortunately, because they have as you know, community colleges have a very wide open access policy. They don't really have that. So we have our time kind of making all of that work. About 5 years ago, we got into a round of grants with the National Science Foundation, and each year at the MPIC Winter Conference, I've given kind of an update because we're a partner with MPIC as well, which, as you know, is an ATE center, and we've been in the CISE directorate. And if you're familiar with NSF at all, how many of you are familiar with NSF? So you get what's going on there. A lot of different directorates, a lot of different grants, more money than anybody. So NSF is a nice club to belong to. If you're looking for alternative funding. Our perspective at Folsom Lake College, we're part of Los Rios, which is the second largest community college district in California, with about 85,000 students. I believe the other one is LA. But anyway, one of the things that's really been fun for us is that we're a very new college. We only got our accreditation as a standalone college in 2004, which is the year that I joined the organization. And we've been able to do a lot of different things, really, that an older college maybe can't do because we don't have as many traditions and articles of red tape and so forth that we have to deal with. So we can be a little bit more agile, a little bit more responsive, a little bit more creative, maybe a little bit more crazy, kind of depends on your point of view. And we certainly have had a lot of good luck with what we've done, but also we've had some lessons learned that are the kind of lessons that my son learned. For example, when he first tried parking my Jaguar, and resaddled the front of it, parking it. So, you know, now you can see a key officer, so there you go. Just when you get started early. Anyway, the MPIC folks have asked me to talk about lessons learned a little bit, and kind of whip through this quickly so we can chat a little bit. We don't have a lot of time today, but we'll do what we can. The first thing is about building the team, and I think this is the most important thing. I also think it's the thing that I do the best personally. I've been in grants and grant-related things for many, many years now, and this is the key to the city, I think. So we have to build a team. We have to figure out who those people are. We have to know what to look for, where to find it, and how to keep it. Those are the three things. So we have to identify kind of a profile of who it is that we want to get involved. Now, in no way is the profile a completely done deal, and you only talk to people who exactly fit it. The profile is something that's a guideline, and that's a really important point to make about what we're going to be saying today about lessons learned, is that every time you come up with something that looks like a bulletproof process, or in this case a reverse resume or whatever the case may be prepared to change it. Be prepared to modify it. Be prepared, if you want to say, to violate it. Because something always comes up that's a surprise. And that extends your vision a little bit and causes you to go, gee, I wish I'd thought about that in advance, but now that it's happening, let's figure out how to use it. Okay, so one of the things that I look for in people to join the team is that once we have everything figured out that we want to do with the grant, and a lot of times that's a team thing that goes on there. We have the values, missions, vision, you know, all of those different kinds of things that you do. And we want to find people that are in alignment with that, people to whom that makes sense, people that have a passion about that. And if they don't have a passion about that, maybe it's because they don't know about that. So that's part of our discussion, is to find out what their passion really is and see if it connects. Then the elevator pitch idea. Okay, now the elevator pitch is, as you probably know, you should be able to tell somebody about your project on an elevator on the way up. Okay, so you have to narrow it down, prune it, as it were, to something that's presentable in a very short period of time. Right now, my elevator pitch is 234 floors. So I'm still working on that, narrowing it down thing. I actually would almost call it a Starbucks pitch. Go to Starbucks, spend an hour and a half, then I can deliver my pitch. I'm pretty good with that. But the whole idea here is that you have to create kind of a marketing sense for getting people involved with the project. And that's not as easy as it sounds. One of the things that you have to do is you have to have your own passion, you have to have your own clarity, you have to have your own statements that describe succinctly what it is that you're trying to do, and find out then if that person is aligned. Just one example of this, I was talking to a guy that is an actual real rocket scientist and a computer scientist as well. And where I tapped into his passion after talking for about 15 or 20 minutes is that he has a 3-year-old son. And he wants his 3-year-old son to enter a system that will be able to handle some enthusiasm about STEM. And he says, I need something to get involved in because I am not going to put my kid into a system where they kill off that passion. And I had to say, guilty. We do that. We kill off passion. It's not what we're trying to do, but somehow we do it. So he got involved because of his 3-year-old son. So that, it's just an example of maybe where that could go. But then letting people explore their own interests, in this conversation about how to get involved or in what way to get involved or what your involvement is going to mean, you can let them kind of work with this idea, is this a fit for me? Can I commit some time to this? Is this going to give me some benefit? Is there a value-added component to this for me? And then each one of those people, in turn, helps create an additional network. So when I was talking to this guy that I thought was just really, really, really smart, I was almost, once I got over being awed, I was sort of intimidated because this guy was so smart. And he says, well, I wish I had time to get involved in this, but I've got a couple of employees that are way smarter than I am, and they'd love to get involved in it. And I thought, way smarter than you are? Yikes. How are we going to handle this? And turns out they're pretty smart guys, but they're having a lot of fun with it, and one of them, in fact, is the guy with the 3-year-old. So, that worked out really interesting. Again, don't be so locked in to what it is that you think you need or want that you're not willing to accept the surprise. This has happened many, many times. So then how about shifts in the team? Once you build a team, it's kind of like an NFL team. Somebody goes into free agency, they're gone, you've got to replace them with somebody. Or if you're hardball, right? You find a replacement guy that's actually, in your opinion, somewhat better than the original guy, and you make that switch. Well, in a way, it takes being courageous enough to say, that isn't working for us. This happened with one of our PIs. We had a PI that was a great guy, a lot of passion, not willing to do anything in it. Okay, just was not a fit. So I went to his dean and said, look, we really need a different guy. Something's got to happen. And the person we wanted worked out really, really well. So being willing to make changes, look at their ability to maintain and continue on even if things get a little bit rough. Okay, because they do in some of our meetings. We've had full-on arguments, which I think are some of our best meetings. Of course, I'm a psychologist, so what do I know? But those things are fun because we really get somewhere. At the end of the day, it's amazing how everybody says, you know what, I think that's what we're doing here. We're here to talk business, to education, to government, to the community, and kind of figure out what's going on here. Why don't we have the people that will fill those jobs that James was talking about this morning? where are we missing the mark here? And finally, everybody gets down and starts talking with each other, and we realize we don't speak the same language at all. So we've got to figure this out. And part of what we have to look at here is what's the value added for each one of each one of these team members? How are we going to keep their interests strong in what it is that we're doing? We'll talk more about that in a second. This is one of the graphics that we use. I don't want to get into real detail with this because it would take too long. But this is one of our structures that we use to come up with sort of a where do I pick answer for people. And so this can be part of your elevator pitch, especially if you have a little card-sized one that you can, no, not really, we don't do that, but you can share this idea with people and they can say, well, you know, this, in my job, this is really my strength is in the development and documentation piece or whatever it is, okay? But this, again, is only a guideline. It's really important not to see these as cages or boxes. These are guidelines. This is a starting point for conversation. And this was developed by one of our business partners. He says, this is what we do. Why not do it with the grant? A lot of examples of that. Okay. And one of the things that I think we did right with this whole project is really welcoming the perspective of our business partners because it's quite a lot different than ours. Quite a lot different. A lot more around efficiency, a lot more around documentation, a lot more around progress, a lot more around evaluation, accountability, timelines, all of that kind of stuff. In education, we're a little squishy on that, frankly. At least I am. Of course, I said I was a psychologist, and psychologists are pretty much squishy about everything. Anyway, so this is just another, another tool that we can use. The next thing is limiting the scope. This is not something I'm really good at. I like to take into account everything and try to fix everything and try to get everybody involved and everyone's happy and all of that kind of stuff. And one of our business partners says, you kind of have a world hunger point of view, don't you? You like those solutions that are going to solve world hunger. So, geez, I never thought about it that way, but And he introduced me to this concept of below the line. You all familiar with that? Okay, so you have all these different things that would be nice to do, and then you decide from that list what goes below the line. In other words, we probably aren't going to get to that. It's probably not practical for us to think that we're going to fix that or address that. So we'll put those below the line. They're still there. You can go back to that documentation anytime you want. Let's be realistic. Are we really going to find 10,000 people who can teach computer science at the 12th grade level? No. Not really. So we have to figure out some other way of looking at that. Okay, so there's that that point of view. A couple of things that we did, I think, that were significant. One of the first things that we did when we started with this grant that we're concluding right now is that we had a video teleconference with our program officer at NSF. And apparently this was kind of a new idea because she had no idea where their video teleconference facility was. So we kind of had to, figure that out. Our tech people spent about 3 or 4 hours on the phone getting it so it would work. I don't think they'd ever used it. Something that could just do it. You could just flip the switch and it was on. But oh my gosh, it's crazy how long it took to get that together. And then, how many of you do video teleconferencing fairly regularly? Okay, so you know what happens when people use it for the first time? You look at their image and they're way down in one corner of it. You see all this brick or windows or whatever, and they don't realize that you actually have to move the camera and zoom it and all that kind of stuff. So and there are program officers, so we don't want to really tell them, get somebody in there who knows what they're doing, so we can get this figured. Kind of don't want to say that sort of stuff, but it was really good because we had some basic questions that we wanted answered, and it was really nice to be virtually eyeball to eyeball about that. Things like, how are we going to define what it is we're talking about, which is computational thinking. And she said, well, that's what we're going to need a grant for, is to define it. So we thought we were just going to Google it and everything would be cool, but you know, it can turn out like that. Another thing is looking at successful proposals in the same area that you're doing, just to get ideas, not to copy them or steal their stuff or, you know, whatever. But I think Pete Saplin in the back here will back me up when I say that one of the keys to doing a really good project is knowing what everybody else is doing, so you can, you know, collaborate, you can address different pieces and, you know, that kind of thing. It's really important to be able to do that. And then finally is the research part of it. And the research part of it, it kind of depends on what you're doing, what type of grant it is, and, you know, that kind of thing. But it is important to do that as much up front as you can. Find out what's going on in the field and, you know, that kind of thing. One of the surprises for us is that in computational thinking, we did some research with our collaborators that are computer scientists, and they hadn't really heard of computational thinking. You know, it's really about what they do. We just don't call it that. So that was a piece that we needed to address immediately, because we were talking about something that didn't make any sense to the very people that actually do it for a living. Okay? So all of this is to really focus on the grant parameters and make sure that your activities are addressing what the grantor is paying you to do. Okay? In this case, it was some real exploratory stuff, which was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. Okay, then have a view of where you want to go. This is a great question. What does it look like when we get there? There should have a question mark, and then you'd identify this question. Have you ever done gap analysis? Have you done that stuff? Okay. So you have what does it look like when we get there? What's our current state, and what's the gap? Okay. So we'd like to have this be happening. It's not happening. What do we need to do to address that gap? And those are called GCAs, or gap closing actions. So this is part of your elevator pitch, obviously. You know, you're trying to make sense to people about why are we even doing this project in the first place, let alone why should you be involved in it, and what can you contribute, and what's going to be the outcome, and all those kinds of things. So what we wound up doing was a strategic planning process. And at some point our program officer told us that she'd never had a grant that she was program officer for before they did a formal strategic planning process after getting the award. Okay? In other words, okay, now we got the award, we know how many years, we know how much money, we know who the people, you know, blah, blah, blah. We've got all that stuff. But it's not strategic enough. So we got somebody in to take care of that process for us. And it's been really the guiding light of, you know, every step of the way. So I think that was a really good lesson learned for me. I can't even tell you how many grant projects I worked on, but we never had a formal strategic planning process after getting the award. All right. So then, why should I care? Sounds like kind of a flippant question, but it really is how particularly business people feel. You know, I've got all these things tugging on me. I've got a lot of pressure. I've got people to answer to, all of that. What's the benefit going to be for me? How can I look at my shareholders and say, okay, your CEO just spent 20 hours this month working on this thing with the community college and the local university, and you know, they're like, okay, bottom line, but how much did we make off of that? You know, so that's the story they're telling us, is that we have to figure out, you know, what our value added is going to be here. So different questions, like for students, and we have students involved in the grant team as well. Am I going to get a better job? Am I going to be able to find a job more easily? Is this going to help me in my future educational pursuits? Is this valued or recognized at other levels? Who do I talk to there? You know, that kind of stuff. So we have to have bridges built for them that they can see. They're not virtual bridges. They're bridges they can walk across. So that's really, really important. We talk about our product in education. What's our product in education? The students. Okay. So how are they matching up with the template that employers have in mind? One of the really interesting things that we found out, not just through this project, but through a lot of other things that we've done in research, that we've done fairly extensive research in the Sacramento region, is that employers are so interested in soft skills, they almost don't care if you don't have any technical skills. They're just about there, which means they're desperate. What they want is people who can show up to work and be attired appropriately and communicate with others and think critically and stuff like that. You know, I mean, basically, workability skills. I mean, how long have we been teaching that in education? Apparently, we aren't doing a very good job of it, because what employers are seeing is people that are just not ready for this employment experience, especially in anything that would be considered highly responsible or high level or whatever. So, in fact, if you are interested, give me your email address after the presentation this morning, and I will send you our poster that we made up from that. We call it Important Work and Life Skills. And it's derived from this. We surveyed about 5,000 employment entities in the Sacramento region, and they came up with this. And every time I show it to somebody, I just showed it to an international marketing manager from Intel. And he said, that's it. That's what we want right there on that poster. That's the stuff. So, you know, and they said, yeah, that's what everybody says. He said, yeah, I think you're right about that. And then from the standpoint of the grantor and also other partners, okay, that get involved in this, especially if they're not right at your doorstep, is can I move this into my region and make it work? Or is this some sort of boutique solution that really only works in Folsom, California? Or will it work in LA and Boston and Miami Beach? So is it portable? Is it scalable? You know, the Sacramento region is a fairly well-populated area, but it's no Bay Area. So is it something that you could take into a unified school district with 40 or 50,000 students? Or is it only going to work in a kind of a small district, maybe a couple or three schools? We only have 2 high schools in our city. Some of you have, what, 5, maybe? But a lot different.
Las Vegas is one district. Las Vegas is one district. We have 20 or 30.
Oh, yeah, in one district. I worked up north in a place called Reading, where we had one city and 26 school districts in one county. 26. Some of the school districts would fit in this room. Very rural. The next door county doesn't even have a stoplight. Really? I mean, don't you have cars? In Trinity County. I was in Shasta County. And by the way, Mount Shasta is not in Shasta County. It's in Siskiyou County. And another big mountain, Lassen, is actually in Shasta County, not Lassen County. But, you know. You know, I think they grow a lot of stuff up there, you know. Maybe that was going on when they were named. But anyway, it's kind of weird. Okay, so next. Managing a team. This is kind of how we set it up. I'm a big name guy, you know. I like to come up with little monikers and names and, you know, stuff like that that kind of have a little cachet or whatever. So I have as I mentioned before, a son that's a police officer, California Highway Patrol, and I have another one that just graduated from the Army Rangers. So, you know, they're talking about the COM means command. Okay? And I thought, well, it could also mean committee. So we have 3 committees. Our steering committee is the Exec Com committee. That's the one that gets everything that is sent out they're invited to every meeting, to every event, to every huddle. Okay, that's our smallest group. Everybody that's in ExecCom is also in TaskCom. And TaskCom, under the direction of ExecCom, actually does the work. Okay, so they get the assignments, and they get the timelines, and they get the responsibilities, and all of that. And obviously, ExecCom is in a way kind of supervising themselves, because they're part of this. So everybody that's on ExecCom is also involved in the tasks. Okay, so there's overlap there. And then AdCom is the much larger group. That's the advisory committee. And the advisory committee is basically anybody who wants to come and have a voice in this. So it could be anybody from the community, from other educational institutions, and so forth. And it looks really, really big, but it actually isn't, because what you have to do, and there's a lot more detail to this, which we don't have time for, but what you have to do with the advisory committee is make it so that it isn't just a public forum for people to complain about stuff. You have to make it so that it's people who have a passion for what it is you're doing, and they're really invested in it being a success. Right? So you just organize the agendas that way. All the people that, just want to practice free speech or whatever, kind of figure, well, there are better places to do that. One lady tried doing it in our library one day, got up on the table and started, not a free speech zone, by the way. Handcuffs were involved. Okay. All those of you that work in community college, you know what I'm talking about. All kinds of fun stuff. Then this is a little bit more detail. Again, we don't really have time to share about this, but this is a little bit more detail about how these things work. And so whenever you invite anybody to be part of ExecCom, TaskCom, or AdCom, you can give them this, and they see how they work together and what specifically each one is responsible for. It also helps when you go to explain why you do things the way that you do to the grantor in our reports and things like that. So, this documents that. Okay, then manage the time. Manage the time. This is so important. And I like saying that in a presentation that has time parameters, because that's how I always feel at these meetings. We really have to be specific about how much time commitment there is. People from Intel will tell you, I have a hard stop. You know what a hard stop is? Got to get up and leave at a certain time. So, and they always tell you that, which is pretty cool. We could learn something from that. But anyway, just a few things here. Having a long-term timeline, we'll look at that. Meeting objectives, modalities for meetings. We always have CCC Confer, by the way. We often use something like Google Hangouts, okay, for video teleconferencing from the desktop, that kind of thing. Lots and lots of things that we do like that. And of course we use Google Docs and other ways of making sure that everybody has the documentation when they're listening on the phone or whatever it is. So, agendas. I never was really that big on agendas. Because, like I said, I'm a psychologist. I like things to be a little more stream of consciousness, but this is people like agendas. So we get agendas, and what we did when we first started putting agendas out is I said, well, what are the outcomes? Well, I don't know. We haven't had a meeting yet. Well, that's no good. We have to have outcomes. We have to understand that. Okay. So what they help us to understand is that agendas are plans. And in order to stick with that plan, you have to stick with the agenda. So the agenda needs to be written, it needs to be on an advance, it needs to be specific, all of those kinds of things. And the other problem that we ran into was that our meeting management was really centered around people from the educational community. That's a different kind of meeting management than if you have business people and so forth in there. And what they like to see are ground rules. Because they don't want to see the meeting get out of control. Time-wise, topic-wise, anything like that. And believe me, from their standpoint, our meetings are out of control. Okay, and I thought they were pretty good meetings. I've been in education for 30 years. I know a good meeting when I see one. Well, you know, they said, no, it's not how we do things. Let us help you understand why this isn't working for us. Okay? Really, really insightful stuff. And it was hard at first for us not to be defensive about that. It was hard for us not to say, look, we're professional educators. Who knows more about everything than we do? Turns out not really the case. But here's some examples, just some things. I think one of them that was really actually kind of interesting. We track key decisions, and we don't revisit unless something material has changed. You always have people who want to recycle the same stuff over and over and over again. And you have to make sure everybody understands these ground rules and then hold everybody to them. And you can do that in a, you know, being a psychologist is a real disadvantage in some ways, but one of the things I can do really well is help people to understand that there's a rule that they're breaking, and they shouldn't do that. So that's helpful to have some skills like that. Another thing I want to point out is disagree and commit. This is another thing that business people do all the time, where they say, you know what, I don't agree, but I'm going to support it. And that's it. That's the end of it. There's no drama, there's no backbiting, there's no, you know, everybody is responsible for supporting that decision. And this is a foreign concept in education, I think. You know, a very foreign concept. But it helped us to make steps, even when we were slogging through the mud, even when it was tough. We always moved ahead. Definite lesson learned for me. Disagree and commit. I even practice it at home with my 18-year-old. Okay, we're still trying to work out. Well, it doesn't really work at home. So still trying to work on some of that. And that's just in case you missed the first time. This is a poster we made up. And we put a large poster like this in every room that we used for the grant. The meeting rooms, the larger rooms where we had our symposia and those kinds of things. We had this plastered all over the place. At any point in time, anybody on the team could look and see where are we. Are we on time and on target? Performance to objectives, you know, those kinds of things. This was a great, great idea. I'd like to say it was mine, but frankly I don't remember. Anyway, it really helped us. And then later on we put some detail down in here as we finished up different parts of it. And it really did guide us in terms of what we were able to do. So again, you know, I'm glad to share this with any of you that are interested in a usable form. You got to make it easy for them. That's the bottom line here. Make it easy for them. Our police department always knew when we were having meetings because they didn't take it in cars on the whole campus when we had meetings. That's really great, you know. And that's another thing about probably small and new is, you know, you can call the captain. That was only 4 doors down from me and say, you know, we got these people for just don't worry about it. Somebody get a straight ticket, should take care of it. You know, that kind of stuff, so that our partners don't have to worry about those things. This meals and refreshments type thing, we discovered with our business partners, noontime was about the only good time to have a meeting. So we had an 11:30 to 1. We always fed them, and they knew that they were welcome there. They didn't get any tickets, you know, they didn't have trouble parking, you know, those kinds of things. It's big stuff. It's big stuff. And that's when you see them come, and they walk into the place like they're part of the place. And that's when you know you've gotten there. You know, oh yeah, I know I'm here, I know where the meeting is, I know we're going to have lunch, you know, everybody's expecting me, you know, I make a contribution, all of those kinds of things. It's a real mindset that you have to kind of establish with folks. And it communicates value. Okay, so manage the product. Specific deliverables, timelines, persons responsible. This is something that business people love. Certainly doesn't sound like education. Yeah, it's a business model, okay, and that's what it looks like. I know it's an eye chart, you know, but here we have the strategic objective. This was brought out of our strategic planning process. They were imported directly to the spreadsheet. Then, what's the deliverable? What is it we're trying to produce? What's the outcome? Okay. How are we going to know that we've reached that? It's the success metric. Then we had an exec comm advisor, a project manager, primary driving group. That's one of our 3 levels: exec comm, CASCOM, and AdComm. Start date, due date, status, and that goes in colors. This is a little bit older when all these things are done now. And then comments, like what's in the way, what kind of impediments do we have, what do we need to do to get around them. Somebody got sick, somebody didn't follow through on something, whatever it is. But you can always look at this at a glance and see right where you are in the project. Okay. Then finish it up with grace. We're kind of in that process right now. We're just bringing everything to conclusion. We had a symposium at the end of September. We had about 45 people there. Had students come in. Our project happens to be a great partnership with the Unified School District. So we had middle school students and high school students come in and present the 45 big brains in the room. They had no problem doing that. They demonstrated their projects. I thought they were going to blow some stuff up, but they didn't quite get that far. Did some really, really fun things. And, I kind of, when I was thinking about this is actually has an article that we're working on right now for a journal about the grant process. Treating people right, honoring them as your partners. You always introduce them. You always make sure they have a place of honor when you have some sort of event that's going on at the campus. You make sure everybody knows who they are so that they can go up and greet them and say, yeah, I'm part of that CPATH project, blah, 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 blah. And then celebrating your work. Now that may mean taking exec comm out to a really good Chinese restaurant instead of having cafeteria food brought in. Our cafeteria food was really, really good because we had a chef, not a cook. Seriously, the guy's very talented. But take them all to a restaurant, buy them lunch. It's a great small way to say you've really been working hard and we appreciate the benefits that you've brought. So making the meetings brief and convenient, time-wise, brief, on time, start on time, end on time, that kind of stuff. Follow the agenda, but not too closely. Okay, we had to help our business partners understand that this is kind of a process, and we need to add some things to the agenda or carry them over to the next meeting. They're not really used to doing that much. Okay, I got 5 minutes left. Then reviewing the meeting length and frequency pretty often, so that you're on track with that. I like this phrase here: distribute the credit, absorb the blame. That's one of the things that you can do to help people feel very valued. And I can absorb a lot of blame. We have a blame-free culture, but people still get blamed for stuff sometimes. We really try to work around that. Stipends, they don't have to be big, but you should give people some kind of monetary recognition for helping. Celebrating the wins. One of our guys calls that claiming victory, which I think is a good way to do it. I have a couple of links here. I don't really have time to share them, but finding the best people. Don't be afraid to ask the CEO. Because the CEO may say, man, I'd like to do that. They don't get asked that kind of stuff very much. Get the highest up, best, most motivated, most excited people from wherever you can find them. Don't be afraid to ask them. Our college president comes from you sometimes. Get some toys. We started a robotics program out of this thing. They had no intention of doing that. It just happened. And I'll give you the link to this. It's what our innovation center does. It's things that fly, things that float and dive, things that crawl across the ground. We have all kinds of wild things going on. Eat together. Something about eating together. It just breaks down the barriers and causes people to bond. I believe that for many, many years because I used to be in student development. Always have food. Always have food. So, lesson 7. Wow, that was whirlwind. Questions? Comments? Say your words.
Do you have any other projects coming up?
Yeah, we do. Actually, we're applying right now for a CE21, which is Computer Education for the 21st Century. And we're going to be looking at another 3-year project there. And we might do a math science partnership. Those are longer, about 5-year type things. But it's all around STEM. All around STEM, mostly around computer science. So that's the kind of the connection here. Now, we can, the availability of the slideshow, what can you tell us about that?
Well, all of this was recorded and it's on, it will be on Systems to Confer, and so
Okay.
there'll be a spreadsheet with links posted.
Oh, great. Okay. So we'll have all this available for everybody. And if you want anything specifically right now from me, just give me your card and write on the back of it, I want to see the toys. Or you know, I'd like to get a copy of your deliverables management tool, or you know, whatever the case may be, and we'll make sure to get that to you right away. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.